Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. So today we're going to take a look at a newer, more modern horror film, a PG-13 horror film from 2016, and that is The Boy. As you can see, I have on Blu-ray and digital HD here, so uh, flip cover here. So yeah, so I'd actually seen The Boy on, I believe was it Netflix or was it Shutter? It might have been Shutter. I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. About a year or two ago, I want to say. So I purchased it for a cheap price late last year and thought I'd give it another watch because my feelings on it the first time, as it is for many movies, can kind of be wobbly. So usually that second watch kind of lets you know what you think about a movie sometimes. So unless it's just outstanding at the first time you watch it. Um, so yeah, I gave it another watch and I'm going to go ahead and review it today. So we'll start with the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will try to be as much spoiler free as it can be. So as I said, The Boy is a 2016 American horror film directed by William Brent Bell and written by Stacy Manier. The film's, let's see, I don't want to do, it's an international co production between China and the United States. The Boy in the United States, it was released in the United States on January 22nd, 2016. The film grossed $64 million worldwide on a $10 million budget, so it obviously did pretty well. It actually has a sequel, a standalone sequel, Brahms, The Boy 2, which was released in 2020. I have not seen that. I heard it's not very good. So basically, the film opens with our main character, Greta Evans, an American foreigner from Montana, who travels to the United Kingdom after being hired as a nanny by the elderly Hillshires. Upon the arrival, the couple introduce Greta to her charge, a life size porcelain doll named Brahms that they treat like their son. The Hillshires coach Greta on taking care of Brahms and their house while they are on holiday, leaving her a list of strict rules to follow, including reading to Brahms in a loud, clear voice and playing loud music for him. Initially, Greta ignores the rules. She regularly calls her sister, who tells her that Greta's abusive ex boyfriend, Cole, has been trying to find out where she is. Malcolm, the local delivery man, stops by often, and Greta learns that the real Brahms was killed in a fire 20 years ago on his 8th birthday. Malcolm asks Greta out and she accepts. While preparing for her date, her dress and jewelry vanish while she is in the shower. She is lured to the attic by strange noises and locked inside and is mysteriously let out the next morning. She explains to Malcolm what happened, and they discuss the real Brahms, who Malcolm says Mr. Hillshire described as odd. Strange events occur. A child's sobs are heard in the hallways. Phone calls are cut off, and the doll seems to move on its own. After receiving a phone call in which a child's voice urges her to follow the rules, Greta locks herself in her room. She then finds a peanut butter and jelly sandwich outside her door, her favorite, and the child's voice promises he will be good. Believing that Brahm's spirit lives within the doll, Greta begins to take the rules seriously. So that's sort of the setup and the premise, the first act of the movie, you might say. Cast wise, we have Lauren Cohen as Greta Evans, Rupert Evans as Malcolm, Jim Norton as Mr. Hillshire, Diana Hardcastle as Mrs. Hillshire, and Ben Robeson as Cole. So yeah, that's the setup, premise, and cast for The Boy from 2016. So this is a very mixed movie to me. I don't mind that it's PG-13. In fact, I actually have quite a few horror movies in my collection that I really like that are less than R, even PG before they had PG-13. So going into it, I knew it wasn't going to be a bloody or gory or a lot of kills kind of movie that showed you anything because it was PG-13. A lot of PG-13 horror movies can work for me. This one kind of works for me, but it kind of doesn't too. So let's just go ahead and get into it. We'll start with the things that I liked about the movie. The production design, the production value of this movie was very good. Most of the movie, of course, takes place in this large house or mansion that the Hillshires live in. Um, and it just looks fantastic from all the rooms to the hallways to like the kitchen, the dining room. It's one of those creepy sort of big house slash mansions that you see in other movies like The Conjuring and The Changeling comes to mind from the early '80s. So yeah, from a production standpoint, they definitely had a budget on this movie, and they did it. They used a lot of it in this production design and just the look of the house and the mansion, the setting of it, where it takes place. It looks amazing. I also thought the acting was really good. Now, granted, there's not a lot of actors in this movie. There's really only two main characters. Well, you could argue three. No, I'd say two main characters, and then there's a couple of like side characters. But I thought Lauren Cohen, who played Greta, and Rupert Evans, who played Malcolm, both did a really good job. And in a lot of ways, they carried this movie, especially Laura Cohen as Greta, because we have to believe her as the main character of this movie as far as what's going on, especially for the first two acts of the three-act structure here. So yeah, I have in my notes that the cast was really solid, but really the cast is like two people as far as a main cast goes. Then we have the Hillshires, Mr. and Mrs., and then the ex-boyfriend, abusive ex-boyfriend, that come into the movie either early in the case of the Hillshires or late in the case of the ex-boyfriend. But yeah, the two main leads did a really good job, I thought. I also thought the movie did a good job of building tension, specifically in the first two acts of this movie. This is one of those movies where we're not quite sure what's going on. We're not sure if it's all in maybe the main character's head. We're not sure if there's a spirit inside of this doll. Um, you know, there's a nice mystery there that sort of takes place, and we're kind of with the main characters, kind of following the unfolding of this mystery and this story as to what's actually going on. And as a result, we get a lot of tension-filled scenes. I think there's generally some creepy scenes, especially in the first two acts of this movie. I also think there's some nice character backstory, particularly as it relates to Lauren Cohen's character as Greta. We kind of find out why. Well, she kind of blows it off and thinks it's silly at the beginning that she's taking care of this doll. She thinks it's a joke. She actually becomes the doll becomes very important to her midway through the movie into the second act, and we kind of get a little bit of reason why. There's some backstory there that I think works pretty well to why her character makes the decisions that it does and kind of has a turn halfway through the movie. So I thought that was really well handled in the movie. It allows us to understand certain character motivations, and it adds more to the overall plot of this movie as well. The movie overall looks good. They have good use of lighting in the movie, good cinematography. It's a well shot movie, effectively so from a visual standpoint. Um, and because of the cinematography and the visuals, as well as the production design, um, we get an effective and spooky atmosphere resulting from those things, as well as a pretty decent score. Um, Pretty decent sound effects and score in the movie, musical cues. Those things all make it for along with the setting and as I said, the look of the mansion and the house. It really makes for some effective creepy atmosphere. So yeah, there's a lot of good things to like about this movie. It had a great setup to it. So those are my pros. So if you notice, I mentioned a lot about the first couple of acts, the first two acts of this movie in my pros. And that's going to lead me right into my cons. The reason you didn't hear me mention the third act a whole lot is because I'm going to mention it now as I get into the things I did not like about this movie, which is the big reveal. Um, the big reveal that takes place the end of the second act and the beginning, or the end of the second act and the beginning of the third act, the end of the second act, beginning of the third act. Okay, yeah, I just had to make sure my words were coming out of my mouth the right way there. Uh, it's just not a very good reveal. I don't know if they were trying to throw the audience off, thinking that you thought it was going to be one kind of movie, and they're going to do this complete you know this complete switch on you or something to make you throw off the audience, but it doesn't work at all, especially if you go back and watch the movie. It doesn't make a lot of sense what the third act reveals. It just kind of feels like a tacked on ending just to be extra clever or scary. That's kind of what I was thinking the first time I watched this movie, but even more so the second time I watched it here recently for this review. It just didn't work for me at all. I wish they had gone it might have been more predictable, but I think it would have been more effective for what they set up in this movie. The fact that maybe the doll just um, had like an evil spirit in it or something, or the spirit of this once alive boy. But no, they didn't go that route. So another thing that really drove me nuts, and this is of long standing for me when it comes not just to horror movies, but really any movies, is when they repeat and overly rely on dream sequences. If you watch my Friday the 13th reviews for that whole series, particularly the first three movies of that series, you'll know that I hated the dream sequences that they apparently had at the end. Um, yeah, they do it in this movie. They don't just do it once or twice, but thrice, and it drives me nuts. I hate the dream sequences. They're just so annoying and completely unnecessary. Whether you want to call them false jump scares, I just call them bad dream sequences, especially in horror movies. And then, of course, it does have some of the typical 2000s PG-13 cliches that we get in horror movies with the jump scares, and that's just don't make it as effective or scary as the movie could be. There aren't as many jump scares, I'll say, in this post 2000s PG-13 movie as you get in some other ones, but there are some there, as well as just some other cliche things that we get in these type of movies. So, and then overall, it's just not really that scary of a movie. It's effectively creepy in the first couple acts, as I mentioned. But overall, they really didn't stick the landing with this movie. That's what I keep coming back to with this movie. And the fact that I can't highly recommend it is because of that third act and the fact that they didn't stick the landing, despite the production value, despite the setting of this movie, despite the acting in this movie, and how they sort of set up creepy scenes and tension with both the characters' backstory as well as the story that they set up itself. But other than that, it doesn't land, and that's a huge deal when it comes to a horror movie like this. So I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10, and I think I'm being kind of generous, frankly, to give it a 7. I was so disappointed with the ending of this movie, I actually wanted to give it a 6, but as I mentioned in my prose, there were enough good things there that I just don't feel like giving it a 6 would be justified. So I feel pretty confident giving it a 7 out of 10. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen The Boy from 2016, what you think of it. Am I being too hard on it? Am I being too easy on it? Because I know there's some people that like this movie even less than I do. But yeah, go ahead and comment down below. Let me know what you think. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos in this series. And please hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content coming up over the summer here. So, but yeah, that's my review for The Boy as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Stay scared. Bye.